Hi, I'm Rhea with Art Furniture Woodwork. As we get into the end of the year, I wanted to welcome all of the new subscribers that we have. As we have a lot of new subscribers, I wanted to take a look back at some of our greatest hits this year so that you can see what you might have missed and go back and pick it up. This piece was a spent desk that started its life out as a harpsichord, but then was transformed into a desk for its first makeover, and now it's ready for its second. When it came to me, it was this olive green color, so quickly that had to be stripped off. Unfortunately, the wood under it was not a high quality wood, so after taking it entirely apart and stripping it down, I then put a coat of shellac on as a seal coat. After putting that seal coat on, I put on a base color of a dark navy. Then we started putting it back together. This ensured that I got a nice, beautiful finish. After it was all together, it was time for the fun part. And I started putting on some decoupage. Now these came from Zazzle, and they make some beautiful decoupage tissue. And I went with a peacock theme, giving this a very ethereal feel. I wanted it to have the feel of whimsy and as if you had just woke up on a spring morning and the dew is still on the ground, just the light shimmering off of it. And with these metallic paints, I really got that look. Then it was time to blend in all of the edges of that decoupage. I did this by using a makeup sponge and my paints and just started blending and painting into the paper and just making those edges disappear. It takes some time to do this, but it's absolutely worth it. Alex had made us little drawers to go in the cubbies, and they fit absolutely perfect. I thought that would be a better touch than just little cubbies. To finish it off, I took a stencil and some gold waxes, and to really go over the top, I added in this wood applique, painting it the same colors that were on the desk. And the end result is absolutely stunning. It is a beautiful piece, quite functional. The pull-out allows you to pop a laptop in there. Kept that wood so that there would be no scratches or anything should you put a laptop on it. Gives you some hidden storage in there, and those cubbies will be great for whatever you need to hide away. No matter which direction you look at this piece, it is absolutely stunning from the feet to the inside, the back. Every part of it has been finished off absolutely beautifully. For our next transformation, we're going to take a look at this chest of drawers. Now, this chest of drawers is made from reclaimed lumber. The drawers had some edges that needed to be repaired, some chips out of them. So quickly I got out my Bondo and started remaking those edges. Sanding them down flush and making them fit properly. After that, it was time to get out some paintable wallpaper. And I picked this up and thought it would look great on this piece. It gives that feel of a tin ceiling, like in an old farmhouse. Cut that to size. This adhesive is fantastic for doing projects like this. These drawers had edges that were rounded, so to use a wallpaper adhesive would have been quite difficult because it doesn't really want to stick down very well. So using the Artsyville foil adhesive really worked quite well. Just got my wallpaper scraper, scraped over it to get everything nice and flat, and we were ready to go. Sanded off the edges of the wallpaper. That makes sure that nothing pulls up later, and it gives a nice crisp line. After trying out many different colors, I went with copper. I thought that would give it a nice kind of industrial look, which was what I was going for. After that, I needed to really hone out those imperfections in the wood, little dents and dings and raw edges. I did that by using some drywall filler and sanding that back, and that gave it a nice smooth finish and took out the wood grain that was showing on the raw edges. Gave it all a good scuff sand with my sander, cleaned off that sanding dust, and then gave it a coat of Ben's shellac primer. Now this is a nice primer. It'll stop bleed through. Also, it will help and make that paint bond to a piece really well. After that, I put on 3 coats of a tricorn black color. It's a really, really deep black. This gave this dresser a more updated look and a nice feel to it. Finished off the inside of the drawers even, and stenciled on a nice design in there in that same copper color that I used on the fronts of the drawers. Put its original hardware back on, and it was a nice little chest of drawers for someone. The next piece that we're going to do is a Art Deco waterfall chest of drawers. Now this chest of drawers has a faux bois finish on it. Faux bois meaning it is a fake wood grain. I tried to remove that faux bois finish with just some denatured alcohol, and that wasn't working. So I got out my scrapers and started scraping it. And I got a lot of it off with that, but most of it I had to use my DeWalt sander and sand off that finish. The finish that was on it originally had a lot of flaws, so it had to come off. I then put on a coat of 123 tinted gray primer. I knew I was going to paint the front of these drawers in black, and with a gray primer that just gives you a head start. I used a Jacobean stain on the wood parts that I was keeping wood, and tried to keep a little bit of that wood. That just gave it a nice dark finish. While I was letting that stain dry, went ahead and put on my black, again using that tricorn black color. I like that color. It's just a very nice true black color. And after that, it was time for the fun part. I got out my Art Deco geometric stencil and did a beautiful stencil on this piece that just really made it updated and come to life. Be sure when you use those stencils you put on some adhesive and they will not move. You just spray the back with that adhesive and they will be just crisp every time. Now, this took a bit of time, but I think the effect was absolutely worth it. This stencil gave it that nice kind of a Gatsby feel, I think. With its original hardware, I had to repaint the insides of that original hardware black. It had lost a lot of its finish. It just made it look like jewelry. As an homage to its beginnings, I left some of the design of the faux bois finish on the very bottom, and the piece just popped. Absolutely gorgeous, good transformation. The next piece that we are going to look at today is a very ornately molded 1980s chest of drawers. All of these pieces are cleaned very well beforehand, but this one I wanted to be sure that I got in those moldings really, really well. It also had a lot of veneer repairs, veneer chips out of it, so got out the Bondo and started doing the repairs on that. Gave it a good scuff sand because I knew that I was going to be painting this piece, and then rolled it with some Ben's shellac primer. The Ben's is a good adhesive primer, so it will help the paint to adhere to the piece, and also it's going to block all those tannins from that red wood. And then it was time for the fun. I got out some molds from Redesign with Prima. One of them is Cherry Blossom, the other one is Aviary, and started making molds and just putting those on in a kind of a pattern, but just kind of spreading them out over the piece and gluing them down. Now this took quite a bit of time, but the end result is absolutely wonderful. After we got all of those glued down, it was time to start painting. I wanted this chest of drawers to have a tactile feel. I wanted you to kind of feel the paint when you ran your hand over it. So using a stippling motion, I was able to achieve that feel and the look that I wanted. So just pouncing that brush all over the piece really gave it a nice effect. And using chalk paint, it's a little bit thicker paint, so it gives you that feel that you're looking for. Started out with a black base and then added in some coconut brown, doing the same stippling motion and pouncing up and down on that brush. Just, it'll ruin a brush, but it's a nice effect. It lets that black shine through. This process really makes those moldings pop. After that, I took a little bit of blue. The blue is so light, it's almost a white, just a really powder colored blue. And this just kind of gave it some nice highlights. And just did the same motion with that stippling to just give it a hint of a lighter color in there. Swiping those over those moldings actually made them pop even more because it's just adding layers. Then it was time to tackle the hardware. I used some black waxes, some copper wax, some gold wax, and all of those layers just made that original hardware pop. Used a little bit of that copper wax over some of those moldings and they just came to life. All of the layering on this piece really worked well. Using black waxes, I added in some shadowing, and I think you'll agree that this piece is one of the best pieces that I've done. It's absolutely gorgeous. There's movement, there's a feel to it, and that's just undescribable. This is a National Mount Airy roll top desk that I picked up at an auction. It's not an antique by any means. I think it needed a little bit of an update, so what we did was we started taking it apart. I took out the cubby insert. Now this piece had already been cleaned by this point, but as you can see behind those cubbies, it really needed to be cleaned again. Kept taking apart until there was nothing left to take apart. Pulled out the insert, the writing surface, and then gave it a coat of 123 primer, and then started with my base coat of a beige color. This is a nice neutral beige. Depending on your wall color or floor color, it will go beige, peach, kind of pinky, but if you're looking for that nice neutral beige, this is a really good one. I custom mixed this color, and that's what I wanted because a lot of browns and beiges are in fashion right now. I thought this would be the perfect update to lighten this piece up. We put 3 coats of that on, and then I got out a Redesign with Prima furniture transfer and started putting that on. This one is called Blossom Flight, I believe. I just put on some nice details with this transfer, just popping it on here and there. After that, I got out my mold called Aviary from Redesign with Prima and started making flowers and birds, just putting them on the piece. This gave it a more 3D look. Custom painting those birds then let me use the color palette that was in the transfer. This took a little bit of time to hand paint all of this. It just makes it a nice special piece for someone. I was able to use the color palette in the transfer, and everything just looked like it went together perfectly. Used a little bit of black wax in those original details and moldings, and that just made those pop out. Just added a little bit of shadowing. Used its original hardware, and as you can see, the results are absolutely stunning. A beautiful statement piece in any home. Next week, we're going to take a look at some of my favorite restoration pieces. So for those of you who like wood and like the restoration of wood, this one's for you.